We have a potential for dangerous severe weather today, all the way from parts of Montana into the northeast, as a lot of Gulf moisture is surging up into the United States, leading to a potential for severe weather. There's also some instability in these areas, which could reach 3,000 to 4,000 joules per kilogram in the Oklahoma and Kansas border. So I'm going to be talking about what you need to know about the severe weather potential. So let's go ahead and get right into the forecast. Let's start with today's day 1 severe weather outlook. As you can see here by the Storm Prediction Center, you can see there is a marginal risk going from the Great Lakes region all the way up into parts of the Rockies, where we do have a potential for a few isolated severe storms today. And then out here, we have a level 2 out of 5 slight risk, which is the main concern down here in the southern plains, where we have potential for a few tornadoes, also some damaging winds and hail. If we go ahead and switch over to our tornado risk here, you can see that we do have a threat for an isolated brief spin-up tornado going from parts of southwestern New York all the way down into central Ohio. So Columbus, Ohio, parts of northwestern Pennsylvania, southwestern New York. You guys all need to be prepared for a potential for a brief spin-up tornado. So definitely, if you're out having any outdoor plans out there, you definitely want to think about rescheduling them, as it could be interrupted by some pretty crazy storms. We do have a threat for a few tornadoes out here in the mainly over there in the Oklahoma and Kansas border, where we do have a 5% tornado risk, marked with a SIG 1, which is conditional Tennessee Group 1 risk, which means that we do have a potential for strong EF2 plus tornadoes. So if you're out there, definitely be aware, as ingredients are coming together to support a potential for strong tornadoes out there. The potential is not very high, but it's definitely going to be something to keep a very close eye on out there. So be aware for a few tornadoes if you're out there. And then we do have a threat for damaging winds within these areas. So there's a 5% wind risk going from the Great Lakes region all the way up into parts of northern Utah, where we cannot rule out a few isolated strong damaging wind gusts. There's also a potential for damaging winds, which is the main concern out here. We do have a 30% wind risk actually outlined out here in parts of the Texas Panhandle, southern Kansas, and parts of northern Oklahoma. So if you're in those areas inside of that red highlight area, that's going to be the main concern for damaging winds today, as we could be seeing some damaging winds, mainly 60 to 70 miles an hour. We're also going to have a threat for some hail here. As you can see out here in parts of the Great Lakes region, we do have a threat for some hail, getting up to potentially quarter size. So if you're out there, definitely be aware for some hail. We do have a threat for some hail, which the main concern for hail today will be out here in parts of the plains and to parts of the Rockies. So definitely make sure you're parking your car in the garage if you're in any of these hail risks, so that your vehicle doesn't get damaged by hail. As we get into tomorrow on Friday, another severe weather threat is going to be taking place out here in the northeast and in the plains in Ohio Valley. So you can see there's marginal risk in the northeast tomorrow, where we do have potential for severe weather. There's a marginal risk going from the Ohio Valley all the way up into parts of the Rockies tomorrow. So we'll have to watch this very closely. If we go ahead and switch over to our tornado threat for tomorrow, it's going to be very low, but we do have a threat for an isolated tornado or two out here in southern Indiana, southern Illinois, and parts of northern Kentucky. So if you're out there tomorrow, consider rescheduling your outdoor plans, as there is going to be a potential for a few tornadoes out there. And then there is a potential for some damaging winds up here in the northeast, and then out here in parts of the plains and the Rockies, Ohio Valley. So if you're in these areas, definitely be aware for potential severe weather. And if you have any plans, outdoor plans or anything like that, definitely consider rescheduling them if you're out here. We're also going to have a potential for some hail. As you can see here, out here in parts of the Rockies up there to southeastern Montana, we do have some potential for hail tomorrow. Even up here in the northeast, we have some potential for hail tomorrow. So Boston, definitely be aware for that. So that's kind of our risk for tomorrow. And then as we get into Saturday, we will have another severe weather threat, as there is the main concern is going to be out here in the northern plains on Saturday, as there is a slight risk actually going from northwestern South Dakota, eastern, all the way up into parts of eastern Montana and western North Dakota. So we'll have to watch Saturday very closely, where we do have potential for a few tornadoes, damaging winds, and hail. There's also another severe weather threat down here in parts of the Ohio Valley down into the southeast. We will have another severe weather threat on Sunday out here in eastern North Dakota and northwestern Minnesota. So definitely be aware for that, as we're going to have some severe weather out there in the northern plains for a while. Then I will shift a little bit farther east over towards Minneapolis and parts of northern Wisconsin. So watching those areas on Monday, as there's going to be a potential for severe weather. Let's go ahead and switch over to the future radar for today. You can see here we're going to have some storms push through this morning into parts of the afternoon. These storms could produce some gusty winds. I wouldn't rule out some severe wind gusts. Also maybe some smaller hail deal with these storms. Those are kind of pushed through. Then we'll get these storms to start developing mainland. They'll really get their act together around like 6 or 7 p.m. Eastern. So we're going to have to keep a very close eye on that. And they could be producing a chance for strong tornadoes, but also the main concern being damaging winds and some hail. So those are some of our storms that we're watching out there. Then out here in parts of the Ohio Valley Northeast, we're also expecting some storms to form. When we cannot route an isolated tornado with some of these storms, but they'll kind of start forming around like 4 p.m. Eastern, but some areas could get development a little bit later than that. And then you can see some of the storms up here in the Rockies that will form out here. These might not look too intense on radar, except this one out here in Wyoming, but they do have potential to produce some damaging winds. So definitely make sure you're staying weather aware for that. If we push up the future radar some more, as we get into the early morning hours of tomorrow, you can see here around 6 a.m. tomorrow, we might have a line of storms actually kind of try to push through here into parts of the Ohio Valley. We're going to have to keep an eye on that. It doesn't look too concerning, but could produce a few gusty winds, maybe some severe gusts. So we'll have to keep a close eye on that. So that's kind of what the future radar is looking like for today. We have a decent amount of spin out here in parts of the Kansas and Oklahoma border. So that's going to be something to be watching, which is why we have the elevated tornado threat. And we have a lower tornado threat out here because we don't have the craziest spin out there in the Great Lakes region, but we do have a threat still for a few isolated tornadoes. But the main area that we're having all that spin is going to be out there in the Oklahoma and Kansas border. Going over to significant tornado parameter values, there is a pretty decent amount out here going in the Oklahoma and Kansas border, so definitely be aware out there. The levels are getting like up to like, let's see, what are these levels? Like there's levels getting up to like, like 2 to 3, maybe even up to 4 or 5. So that's pretty decent levels out there for SIGTOR. So definitely, if you're out there, you need to be stay prepared for a few tornadoes, with some being strong potentially. Going over to our CAPE here, stands for Convective Available Potential Energy. Our environment is going to be completely primed out here in the southern Kansas and parts of northern Oklahoma. So any storm that comes out here, it's going to have a potential to produce a strong tornado, as well as some damaging winds and large hail out there. So definitely be prepared for that. We can see here, we also got some decent amounts of CAPE going up here to Great Lakes region, which is plenty enough for these storms to fire. So we'll have to watch some of those areas as well, as we could be getting up to 1,000 to potentially 2,000 joules per kilogram out there in the Great Lakes region with our CAPE. Yeah, but you can really see our most concerning area for severe weather today is going to be placed in northern Oklahoma and southern Kansas. And as we get into tomorrow, you can see it's going to be more of a widely isolated, there's going to be just a very isolated severe weather event tomorrow. The main concern is going to be from the Ohio Valley all the way up to the parts of northern Rockies. So just within these areas, there's going to be some areas to watch for some isolated, scattered severe weather. Wouldn't rule out an upgrade to a slight risk. I would say maybe over here in the Ohio Valley, but I would say that the highest chance to get a slight risk will be out here in parts of the plains up there, parts of the Rockies. I do think a slight risk will be needed over there. Where we got scattered storms possible. So definitely, if you're out here tomorrow, be aware for some damaging winds, hail. And the main concern for tornadoes tomorrow will once again be out there in parts of the Ohio Valley. We don't have the biggest tornado threat tomorrow. One of the reasons because of that is because we don't have the craziest spin. I do think we could see an isolated tornado out here, though, in parts of the plains up there into the Rockies, but I think the main concern might be down here in Ohio Valley, but I do definitely think that we could have a tornado out there in the plains tomorrow, so I wouldn't rule out tornado risk being issued for that. So that's kind of what the spin is looking like, but there is going to be a little bit of spin out here in Ohio Valley that we got to be watching for a potential for a brief spin-up tornado. And then significant tornado parameter values tomorrow are going to be very low. Yeah, they see out here in Ohio Valley, a threat for a strong tornado will be very low. Also, Nashville, Tennessee tomorrow, you guys do have potential for some severe weather. I do not think it will be too crazy, but the main timeline we're watching for that severe weather, if you're in Nashville tomorrow, will be like around 7 p.m. Eastern. So definitely make sure you're having wiggy alerts if you're out there. You can see on Saturday, we're going to have some storms actually start forming out here in parts of the northern plains out there, parts of Rockies. So we're going to have to watch these storms closely. So this is kind of what the future radar could look like. So the main areas we're watching for severe weather on Saturday will be out there for Williston, Minot, Bismarck, Dickinson, North Dakota, and then out there in Miles City, Montana. Those are going to be the main areas we're watching. We could actually see a pretty significant damaging wind threat start to develop out here in parts of North Dakota and northeastern Montana. So we'll have to watch that closely here. Now, keep in mind, this is the Rufus model, and it tends to over-convect a little bit, but so this might be a little bit overboard of what this model is showing. They're not here in the Mid-Atlantic and parts of the Ohio Valley. We could have a few storms out here that produce some damaging wind gusts and everything like that. maybe some hail. I think the main concern for hail, though, on Saturday will be out there in northern Missouri. So we'll have to keep a close eye on some of those storms out there on Saturday. And guys, we do have a threat for some excessive rainfall today, mainly out there in parts of southeastern Kansas and parts of southwestern Missouri. So definitely, if you're out there today, be aware for some excessive rainfall, and turn around, don't drown when you're encountering flooded roadways. So definitely be aware for flooding out there, as the Weather Prediction Center has issued a moderate risk of excessive rainfall, as you guys are just going to get multiple storms pushed through, producing a chance for excessive rainfall. So definitely make sure to be aware if you're out there. And also within that yellow shaded area, all the way from like southern Indiana all the way to parts of Kansas, that's also going to be a concerning flood risk. And then of course in those green highlight areas, it's just not going to be too concerning, but definitely be aware for flash flooding in those areas. Ohio Valley tomorrow, you guys definitely got to watch out for some flooding, as there will be a pretty big storm system coming through, bringing a lot of rainfall out there. We definitely got to be watching the 4th of July. This is pretty far out, but I wouldn't rule out for a few storms out here in parts of the Mid-Atlantic and the Southeast. And that's pretty much all I got for you in today's video. Thank you guys for watching. Make sure to like and subscribe for more weather updates. Stay tuned, and I'll see you in the next one.